I thought it might be a good idea to kind of give you a little hint for question 16 above. So in this question, they're giving you the graph of a position function. I've labeled that S of t right here. And they're asking you to draw graphs to represent the velocity function and the acceleration function. So just like in question 15 above that, we know that the velocity function is just the derivative of the position function. So I've wrote that right here. V of t is equal to s prime of t, or the derivative of my position function. And then we know also that acceleration is the derivative of the velocity function. So once I get that velocity function earlier, I would derive that and I would get my acceleration. So I wrote that here, and then underneath that I've just wrote that it is the double derivative of my position function. The first thing we're going to do is think about what's happening in this position function. So if you imagine taking a pencil and lining it up with this position function, I'm just going to draw a whole bunch of yellow lines, but you'll get the point. You can picture these as pencils. You can see that this pencil would have a negative slope. It's getting less and less negative, and then when it reaches this point, it's going to have a slope of 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just draw a dashed line in. We know that that is going to be an important point. So at this point, my velocity function is going to have a 0 here. I'm going to continue thinking about this pencil. What's happening now is that my slope is going to be positive. So the slope of the tangent on all of these are positive, and it's getting increasingly positive. You'll notice about halfway through, this line is still positive. It's just getting less positive. And then when we reach this point right here, we have a 0 slope again. So what's happening is, again, I'm going to draw in, that should have been green, sorry about that. I'm going to draw in this dotted line, and I know that my velocity function will have a 0 here as well. Continuing on with my pencil, I now have a negative slope, and it is getting steeper and steeper as we go. So at this point now I can start drawing in what my velocity function is going to look like. I have these negative sloping tangents that are slowly getting less negative until they reach 0 at this first blue dot right here. And then we know that some point around here something happened and my tangents went from very positive to less positive, so that's an important point as well. So I'm going to start down here. I know that this is a 0. I know that this other important point is going to be the maximum of this velocity graph, and then there's my second 0. Now what you're going to notice is that my original function, or my position function, was a cubic function, a negative cubic function. That means that when we derive, we're always going to have 1 degree less. So my derivative is now a negative squared function. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I think I need a new color here. I will use purple for my acceleration function. And so what's going to happen with that one is that I see in this velocity function positive slopes until I reach this point of 0, and then they turn negative. Now at this point of 0, that is the 0 of my acceleration function. So again, thinking about 1 degree less, I'm getting my quadratic turning into a linear function. So it will look something like this. So just because mine was not very nice, I do have these graphs from Desmos in here. So we have our red is our original position vector. Now remember, with this blue velocity, whenever our slope on the position vector was 0, that represents a 0 in our velocity function. So at this minimum and at this maximum. And then on our velocity function again, whenever we had this change in slope, so when it went from very positive to less positive, so right here, that represents the maximum on our velocity function. And then when we're talking about our acceleration function, this green function right here, again, the maximum of our velocity function is going to represent the 0 on our acceleration function. So remember those key points right there.